Hi everyone, and welcome to my Rat Necro guide for season 22. So this is gonna be for what is most likely going to be the best XP meta for 4-man farming. I guess most people know the rat runs already. So they consist of 3 Necromancers, 1 being a support, and 2 rats. They're called rats because of the initial build with the rat mask set. It revolves around the skeletal mages. And well, these days you use LOD because it's simply stronger, but they still kept their name. And this whole setup revolves around like a very specific combination of skills, with the support Necro giving you a permanent Land of the Dead, frozen lands, basically freezing everything, spawning lots of health globes, giving you lots of resources, and you just spawn mages as the rat and they will destroy everything. And together you walk through GR110, 150 and 120. It's going to be quite easy to go pretty high this time around, and it's going to be the strongest rat meta ever. So for the very high end, we can expect rat runs at around 2 minutes, GR125 or even up to 130. And this will yield probably the most XP we've ever seen in a season. So I'm quite excited to see that, and well, let's go over the setup. Here's the typical rat Necro. This is the easy version. There are basically 2 variations, one being with the Circle of Naluge that gives you extra skeletal mages and also makes them last longer, and the other one is with the COE. So with conventional elements you deal more damage, and theoretically you can also keep up the 10 mages, that is just the maximum at all times, but it's much more difficult to play. So you get a few GR tiers out of this, but typically, especially for beginners, I would recommend this setup here because it's simply much more forgiving with the overall speed of the runs, and if something goes wrong, you can catch up more easily here. I mentioned the LOD gem, so this is the core here. This replaces your 6-piece set and gives you almost 10,000% damage. So this is the main gem. You always need to level up this one first. And there's a few important items. First of all, you have the Cypher Cycle giving you 400% extra damage. This gives the ×5 multiplier for the mages. We have the Raz's Volition, which gives you the Singularity rune, which is very important, and also some damage reduction when your essence is not full. So damage reduction doesn't really matter much because everything that ever touches you will most likely kill you, and you have almost no toughness at all. There are some ways to make it not too bad, to not get one-shot everywhere, but more of that in a second. So the other key item here is Tasker and Theo, which is a pretty nice bonus here. You don't care about the secondary role at all. It just needs to be a Tasker and Theo, and unlike most other pets in the game, you simply get the next breakpoint, and there's only 1 breakpoint. So it doesn't matter, you just need to wear those and it will give you the same boost every time. Another core item here is the Crispin Sentence, giving you effectively 300% damage bonus at all times, besides on Juggernauts, because typically everything is frozen when you fight it or when you kill it. And well, you always have the full effect of this ring here, so it's very neat. We have the amulet here, the Haunted Visions, that gives you a permanent simulacrum, and that is really neat because the permanent simulacrum gives you more essence, and it also spawns an extra skeletal mage whenever you cast one. So like this, you double your mages cast, so you can actually get 4 at a time when you have the Circle of Naluge, or 2 at a time without it. And this really helps you to go to the maximum of 10 mages more easily, because they don't really last that long. You can see here with the passive, with the ring, it's only 15 seconds. And without the Circle of Naluge, it's only 10 seconds. So essentially you have to do 1 cast every 2 seconds, or here you have to do like 1 cast every 5 seconds. And this will kind of be like the rotation for you. So that's what you have to keep in mind. As I said, it's much more forgiving with this ring, but also quite a bit weaker. The next core item here is the Requiem Plate, which gives your Devourer 100% extra essence and life. And this item is actually bugged and has been since forever. And with the Devouring Aura and Land of the Dead active, you can actually get full resources instantly. So this is very neat, but just in general also it just gives you more essence, which is very nice, because you're killing a lot of enemies, you're getting a lot of Devourer, just even with the Land of the Dead not active, and you fill your resource up really fast by just walking over the dead enemies, essentially. But we also have the Reaper's Wraps, which helps with that, because the Sea Necro will spawn globes for you. So every 2 to 3 seconds you're gonna get 30% of the resources anyway from the Sea Neck, plus whatever you get from the kills. So we have the chest, and we also have the Dark Reaping passive. So with this you can essentially refill your resources almost immediately whenever you cast a mage, and you always use all of your resources with the Singularity rune. and the more resources you have when you cast the mage, the more damage it will deal. So typically you try to cast it only at full essence, and otherwise, try to wait it out for as long as possible. Other than that, we have some small items here. Stuart's Greaves is definitely recommended. It's 100% movement speed, so this is very good, and you have this bonus up all the time. Red runs are designed to be very fast, so you want to clear most rifts in 2, maybe 2.5 minutes maximum. And if you're not doing that, then you should probably lower the tiers, or try to work on the setup or work on the pathing. And well, this means you have to run really quickly. So Stuart's Greaves is definitely very important. Also, lost time here can help you a lot. It gives you up to 50% extra movement speed again from using the Bone Armor or Harvest of Anguish, which also gives 10% by itself. So with those 2 items and the skill, you have 160% movement speed, and then you have 25% from Paragon, and it's very nice. Plus whatever you get from the support buff that's in the group too. For the helm, the best DPS option here is Andariel's Visage with no socket actually, so you're not really stacking a lot of cooldown in on this anyway. So all you want to do is basically stack attack speed, stack damage, and then maybe elite damage if you can, skeletal mage damage where you can. So in this case, also with the physical damage on the Andariels, it's a very neat addition and can boost your DPS by pretty much around 1 tier or so. Compared to like any other helm option. The next best would probably be a Lore's Crown with an Amethyst, giving you around 46% more life, and you can be quite tanky with that once you actually reach like a Paragon level where you can put some vitality without really hurting your DPS much. And like this, you can sometimes maybe survive like a split second of Molten or Plague Ground effect, or maybe an electrified projectile. So this can be nice, but usually you just go full DPS and don't care about the toughness because, well, you're gonna die anyway. Also for the amulet, we have that Squirt's Necklace. So this gives you another 100% damage bonus, very nice. You can either wear it or cube it, and then you just wear the other amulet. So you go double amulet here. The other cube options are the Rylena Shadow Hook. So this gives you a big damage boost. Your maximum essence is 660 if you have it on the weapon, the offhand, and in Paragons. And total, this will give you a 330% damage boost with the Rylena Shadow Hook. So this is the best option here in the weapon slot. And on seasonal, we can also add the Tragou'ls Corroded Fang for another 200% bonus. So the Tragou'ls Corroded Fang is something like a 7 to 8 tier buff. And well, this is also the reason why the red meta is so strong this time around, but it also has been dominating the XP meta all the way, the last few seasons. You don't really change anything in your skill setup compared to non-season. You simply just cube this weapon. The Necro is gonna curse for you, the C-Neck, and it will apply this 200% damage bonus for you and your pets. So this is pretty neat, and definitely like a very strong addition here. So Necromancer gets a lot from the cube here. And well, in the armor slot, there are a few options. I have St. Archer's Gauge here for the easy mode version, because that allows you sometimes to actually survive maybe like one thunderstorm, or maybe one electrified projectile, or maybe like a molten ground effect. And it even can keep your squirts up in those cases too. So instead of immediately proccing or dying, this can help you out. And another option to go even more tanky is to go with Ancient Path and Defenders, which gives you a lot of damage reduction because, well, you have stuff frozen around you, and the frozen actually count for Ancient Path and Defenders too. So this helps you to actually survive much more easily when there's a bit of density around you. And you shouldn't really try to become a tank with this, but you can definitely walk in a bit more aggressively without caring too much. The thing is just that you lose these squirts quite easily. When you just walk in and stuff that would otherwise avoid because it would kill you, or that maybe would shield you with the St. Archius, it will damage you now, and you will lose this squirts effect. So this is the main reason why you wouldn't go Ancient Path and Defenders, but definitely for people that try it for the first time, I would recommend this until you feel more comfortable to survive. Then you can go to St. Archius. And then once you are even more comfortable with the whole setup, you can transition to the convention version, which is even better, and then you can kind of like raise it to the maximum levels here. Also, another option is the Swampland Waders, which gives you another up to 20% physical damage at the cost of a defensive stat, and then you would actually cube the Hexing Pants. So you don't go with any defense here, and you can squeeze out a bit more like this. But yeah, wearing the Hexing Pants is totally fine, or even wearing the Swampland Waders is also okay. Hexing Pants is usually a bit better, but you have to keep moving all the time, which can make using Oculus Rings a bit annoying. There is also a pretty good T16 setup with this whole thing, so I want to show this quickly here, which is with the Messerschmitt's Reaver. So you go a lot of cooldown reduction, so you try to stack it everywhere with a lowest crown, and essentially just have perma Land of the Dead yourself. So when you play alone, you have to do the Frozen Lands yourself. You have to reset your cooldown every 10 seconds. So it's quite difficult to do, but it's possible, especially when you go really fast through a T16 Rift. You're going to get lots of Messerschmitt procs and reset your cooldowns like this. And well, this is actually one of the stronger T16 builds in the game. So if you're planning to play Rat anyway, then you can just do this with like a few swaps here. You go Gold Wrap, you go like typical stuff like Everrise Band with the Boon of the Hoarder. And well, it's also going to be very strong here, because in Season 22, we get the Valinas here for the 4th cube, giving you way overkill damage. Like even without this 4th cube slot in T16, you're going to be usually fine with this once you have the setup halfway complete and your Legacy of Dreams leveled a bit. And now it's going to be super easy to just like destroy T16. You can also do solo speeds with this, which again is revolving around Messerschmitt's Reaver, so you have to give up quite some damage here, in this case the Tragou'ls Scythe, and you have to keep up that again with the Frozen Lands. This is quite difficult to do, so this requires a bit of practice, and you should definitely consider this only on softcore, because you will die, because sometimes you might mess up your cooldowns, and you need some practice to kind of understand when to cast your Frozen Lands at all times. But it is definitely possible. And you can also do like a pretty efficient solo speed farming setup like this with 100 plus quite easily. To go over the rest of the skills, again we have the Skeletal Mage with the life support rune. So this is really nice because it gives you 2 additional seconds, which makes it quite easy to keep up to 10 mages, even with the COE. And then the passive here, this is quite achievable when you just pass it once every 2 seconds. And with an Aluge setup, it's going to be extremely easy. And well, we have some Necro with Reservoir for the 100% extra essence, scaling with the Ralina's Shadow Hook, and also giving you more Skeletal Mages. We have the Land of the Dead, Shadow Graves, so you can use this especially at the start of the run, or when things go wrong, or when you die, or sometimes on the Rift Guardian. So these are the main use cases here. So you just try to kickstart your DPS by spamming mages, because you get insta refill when you have the Devourer chest and the Devouring Aura. And otherwise you shouldn't really need it very much during a normal run. So only when there's like a long stretch of nothing and you completely run out of mages, then it might be useful. But otherwise, keep it for the start and for the end of the run, or when you die. We have Blood Rush, Metabolism. It's just mobility skill here, and activates the Steward's Griefs. You have the Devouring Aura, the Bone Armor, House of Anguish. This is an activator for the Cycle Cycle, so you need to have it. And it also activates your lost time. So you don't need to have this offhand, but it's definitely really nice with the synergy of the extra movement speed. And try to get this one if you can. And also have to keep in mind that whenever you cast a mage, you will lose 4 seconds of the active time of Bone Armor. So you can do only around 13, 14 casts maximum until your Bone Armor disappears, and you have to cast it again. So keep in mind that you shorten the duration from cycle to cycle, because whenever you cast a mage, it will be reduced by 4 seconds. So basically just press it often enough and make sure that there's some enemies close to you, because it can actually happen that you press it and you're almost at the end of the duration, and then you can't cast mages anymore with this effect. So you have to wait for a little while until the Bone Armor comes back up again. As for the passives, you definitely want to have Final Service. So that's probably the core passive here, because, well, if you die, all your mages are gone and you are super squishy. And especially when you're still learning the build, you want to have this, or sometimes you get hit by something. You don't want to fall over immediately, so this is extremely useful. Next, we have the Extended Servitude, 25% extra duration for your mages. You don't really need this passive that much when you're running with the Circle of Naluge, because it's so much easier to keep up the mages, but it can make it a bit more consistent. Also, we have Overwhelming Essence. This is mainly there to give you more damage from the Singularity rune, which consumes more essence when you can have more. And also it scales with the Ralina's Shadow Hook, giving you another 20% extra or even 40% extra damage, because it's doubled by the Simulacrum. Lastly, we have the Dark Reaping, 2% essence and life per kill. So this will basically restore a lot of essence for you as you run. When you're doing like a cooldown based build, like in solo T16 or in solo speed farming, you definitely want to go with the Blood is Power here. That gives you another 20% cooldown reduction, which is actually quite easy to achieve, because the mages cost life, your Blood Rush will cost life, and well, you can just get this 20% cooldown effect quite easily like that, just by casting your skills that you would normally cast. So this is very neat to have. And also Ratma's Shield is definitely worth considering here. So especially when, as I mentioned, when you have the Circle of Naluj, it's quite easy to keep up the mages, and then you can use this here to get more invincibility, so you can more reliably survive and not get one shot by something. The gameplay itself is actually quite straightforward. So I mentioned that this build is very squishy, but other than that, it's actually not really that difficult to execute. You get up your mages, you have the C-Nec and the Z-Buff doing their jobs, hopefully, and then you will be fine. You always follow the Z Necro, he's the guy leading the party, and you should be around him because he freezes everything with Land of the Dead, and this is when you deal the most damage. He spawns the globes to you, this is when you get your resources, and then otherwise you just keep up your mages. Always make sure you cast the Singularity mages at full essence, and then make sure you have the 10 up at a time. So this is quite easy with the Circle of Naluj, a bit more difficult with the Convention. Occasionally you will see Oculus rings, so try to use them, they are really nice. And also you can try to actually aim at like the big trash monsters, and especially the yellow elites and the blue elites, by right clicking or like whatever your schedule mage is on the target, and the newly spawned mages will actually attack precisely that target until it's dead. So you can kind of command them to kill something, which is very nice, especially against elites. So try to make use of that, because you don't really want to kill like every little trash in the corner. You mostly want to run around, and whenever there's elites, you want to blast it as fast as possible and move on, and then stuff will die on the way. So this is how it goes. And otherwise just be fast, run around, run behind the Z-Nec, and then have the bar buff you, and this is about it. In solo farming you have to be more careful, so make sure that you use your Land of the Dead not in the wrong moments. For example, like right at the end of the floor when you're just walking for 5 seconds and then you walk to the next floor and there's no enemies in between. So try to look a little bit ahead and see what's coming, so that you don't waste valuable time of the Land of the Dead, because when it runs out and you're in the middle of enemies and it takes like another 20 seconds for the Land of the Dead to come back and your mages are down, you're gonna have a bad time and you're most likely gonna die. So try to avoid that, and with a little bit of practice you'll be fine. If you are feeling way too squishy with this whole setup, even with the Ancient Paladin Defenders, then there is one solution to make it maybe not getting one shot all the time, and that is esoteric alteration. So you could theoretically replace one of your DPS gems with the defensive gem here, and especially in hardcore this might be a good idea, because then you should be quite tanky if you have like something like 4 or 5k vitality or so, maybe a little bit from Paragon, and something like the Ancient Paladin or the St. Archius. So this can make it consistent enough, and you lose around 3 tiers worth of DPS, maybe 2 only, and it's not really the end of the world if you do that. So if you're struggling to survive, it's much more important to actually stay alive and keep up your mages than trying to run like this super crazy DPS setup and then dying once or twice every run. So there's no point in that, and if you die too often, then definitely take in one of the extra defensive options here, either the Ancient Paladin, the St. Archius, or Esoteric Alteration even, and this will give you a much better time, but just have to go like a little bit lower tiers then. So this setup is extremely strong, as I mentioned, and it's probably gonna be starting at like at least GR100, I'd say, and then you go all the way up there to like 120, 125 quite comfortably once you have the full setup, some gem levels, some augments, and we have everyone doing their job. So that's about what we can expect here in this season. And as I mentioned, it's going to be like a crazy XP fest. So I hope you enjoyed this overview of this build here, and that you're going to use it to your own advantage to gain a lot of Paragons next season. And well, hope you like this video. See you guys next time.